Hi Facebook, happy Friday. Today I'm doing this from inside for a change. It's cold and dark out there and figured I'd use some good sense and come inside for a little while. But I wanted to update you on some things that have been happening this week so that you can hear what's going on. The first, as many of you know, we had two hearings regarding Sharon Hospital this week. First, on Monday, Peter Cordeau, the CEO of Sharon Hospital, gave a State of the Hospital presentation at Sharon Town Hall, at which he discussed, among other things, a recent meeting with local physicians at which they identified three priorities for the hospital, and that included oncology, behavioral health, and maternity. So there was a renewed verbal commitment to maternity made in that meeting, which everybody thought was very positive, and the meeting was very well attended. I think there were about 100 people there, so it was a great positive atmosphere. Then, of course, there was the meeting on Tuesday afternoon in Danbury. This meeting was held by the Office of Health Strategy to about concerning the proposed merger between Western Connecticut Health Network and Sharon Hospital. And as I've said before, this was a moment for the community to it's a moment when the state has an interest in the provision of health services throughout the state, the affordability, the cost of those services, the quality of those services, and their availability. So it was a really powerful moment for the community to speak out about its needs. And it was, I think, a very positive hearing. It went on for, it started about 3:30, and I think we were done a little past 8 p.m. There were 11 members of the Sharon Hospital general community who were there and gave testimony. There were more than that there, but those people, that was how many people spoke up. And that included myself and Brent Colley, the first selectman from Sharon, and Chris Williams, selectman from Salisbury. So we had, various representation from the healthcare community, from elected leadership, and from various interested citizens. So the participation was robust. There are a few takeaways that I have from that meeting. One important one is that Vicki Veltri, who is the head of the Office of Health Strategy, attended that meeting and participated actively. She clearly was very well versed. As you may remember, we wrote Vicki and some other officials quite a few letters this summer in the course of the activism about the hospital. So she is definitely engaged and was well versed on the issues. The hearing was, as I said, thorough and lengthy. And in the last, there was a lot of testimony given by the applicants, which is to say Robert Friedberg from HealthQuest and John Murphy, who is the CEO of Western Connecticut Health Network, and then various lawyers and financial people for those institutions. So there were a lot of very detailed questions concerning affordability, cost structures, things like that. But there were also a number of questions that focused on the needs of the community. And after the last section of the hearing, which took place after all 11 of us had given our testimony, there was a brief break, and then the members of the panel from Office of Health Security asked a series of questions which focused on three issues that they wanted HealthQuest to ask about, and those were maternity services, transparency, and HealthQuest's responsibility to the community. So that was also a very positive thing. They were focused on exactly the things that we are interested in. So that we took as very positive. And also one other takeaway from this is that here we heard a fair amount of testimony from John Murphy, who's the CEO of Western Connecticut Health Network. And Western Connecticut seems to have a very robust process and policy of community engagement, and it was very good to hear, very heartening to hear that. And various of us expressed the hope that that culture from Western Connecticut Health Network would rub off on HealthQuest, and that we might be able to have a more structured sense of community engagement going forward. If you were not able to attend the hearing and you have something that you'd like to say, as I've said before, there's a way you can submit written testimony up until December 11th, I believe. So please do that. So I think it was a very positive, it's just a step. There were no rulings at this hearing, but it was a very positive outcome, and I think the hearing went as well as we could have hoped. So another thing I wanted to just catch you up on is I've started having office hours. I think I reported last week I had them in Cornwall and Kent, and this past week I've had them in Norfolk, Goshen, and Falls Village. I also had a brief one in Salisbury, but it turns out we didn't tell anybody we were meeting in Salisbury, so I'm going to do that one again this coming week. So just for dates for next week, and again, we'll write this up and post this, but Monday, I meet On the Run in Salisbury at 7 a.m., JP Gifford and Sharon at 8:30, and at the library in Torrington at 6 p.m. On Friday, I will be at the Blackberry River Baking Company at 8 a.m. So I hope, I've noticed actually that people from other towns attend these. I initially thought that, I wasn't aware that many people would cross over into other towns to attend, but they have. And so if there's a time that's more convenient for you, I've tried to hold these at a variety of different times, very early in the morning, or either before work or after work. And for, parents who it's easier for them to do it once their kids have been dropped off at school. I've had some later in the morning. So if there's a time that works for you and you can, come to a neighboring town, that would be great. It's been, because of the short transition period, I don't have a lot of options for scheduling between now and January 9th, so I'm trying to pack as many in as I can. But there will be more opportunities going forward for me to hold them in different locations. And so by all means, if you live in a town when my office hours are not convenient for you, please let me know. Reach out and I will do my best to schedule them at a time or at a variety of times so that lots of people can attend. They've been great meetings. We've discussed everything from, increasing access to healthcare, to digital infrastructure, minimum wage and how that affects local businesses, safety inspections for cars, early voting, economic development, affordable housing, you name it. And these are things that I'm really looking forward to working on once I get to the legislature. So having these conversations with you is so valuable. Also in the last week, I got a series of letters from students at Kellogg in Falls Village about their concern for the environment and climate change, and particularly focusing on banning the plastic bag, which is something that I've talked about a little bit during the campaign. And so, as I've told them, I'm really looking forward to working with them going forward as we work on that little bit of policy. And a little update on Hartford. I had hoped to meet with the speaker this week about various committees, but in his other life, he is a football coach, and happily for him, his team is in the state championship, so he had to cancel some meetings this week, and I hope to catch up with him on Monday. And so a couple other wrap-up things. I can't do this often enough, which is to thank the poll workers and the volunteers for all their work during the election. During the election, but also the re-election, the recount. I have, spoken about how valuable it was that it was such a overwhelmingly bipartisan. We did not have any of the acrimony that you hear about in so many other jurisdictions around the country, and especially the partisan representations from both the Democratic and Republican Party were completely aligned in wanting transparency and a reliable result, and that was heartening to see. But I just wanted to also especially note that, because a lot of people ask me, well, that must have been really stressful for you, and it was, a little bit, but I tell you, the people for whom it was most stressful were the people who worked the polls, because there is nothing like doing your job all over again with a handful of lawyers and political people literally looking over your shoulder at everything you do. So that was hard, and the results really, by and large, were consistent and stuck, and we, all citizens, should be deeply appreciative of you for what you do, and I can't thank you enough for that. It says a lot about our community. A couple notes. It's holiday shopping season. I just this afternoon came from another local craft fair, and I wanted to just share with you one thing I'm trying to do this year. And we live in a rural area, and I, probably like many of you, find myself at the end of the day doing some online shopping just because it's hard to do during the day. And so what I'm trying to do anyway is identify a few things that I regularly buy online and instead buy them locally. Identify a retailer that can, a local business that can provide that for you. And if they don't happen to carry the particular thing you want, talk to them, because they just might stock it if they know that you will buy it regularly. So I have started doing that with my pet supplies, for example, at Pet Puri. So those are really valuable relationships, and it makes shopping more fun, actually. And then I just wanted to note a couple of other things to think about in the holidays. There's a lot of festivity and a lot of festive food, but again, for a lot of families, food is stressful, and they do not have security over where their next meal is going to come from. So there are great food pantries in I think probably all of the towns, or most of the towns in the 64th district, and I would encourage you to find them. Two that I have had particular experience with are the Corner Food Pantry in Salisbury and Fishes and Loaves in North Canaan, and they do a lot of work giving families in our area security about a good warm meal, and knowing that they're going to have healthy food for their kids and for their parents and for everybody concerned. So please think about them when you're doing your own holiday food shopping. And then lastly, today is Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day, and my father was a World War II veteran, and I have his flag here in my office. And especially with the passing of President Bush this week, it's a good reminder about the veterans, and all that they have done for this country and for our values. I had a lot of really moving conversations with veterans over the course of the campaign who, they were connected to the values of this country in a way, in such a deep way that not all of us feel, because of the sacrifices they've made for our values. And so we owe them a great debt of gratitude all the time. And so we thank them for everything they've done to help us have our quality of life. All right, well, have a great weekend, and we'll talk soon. Thanks, Facebook.